Unexplained events occurring throughout history are usually recorded by cultures at the time as strange, mysterious events. Our ancestors may not always be able to explain what they see, but in time, our understanding of the world around us can usually reveal what happened. However, there are still some events that leave us scratching our heads. Number 5. Something mysterious was going on in the skies above the Earth about 1,200 years ago. It was only recently that we understood the significance of this unexplained event, and even now, we're still trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Carbon dating has become one of the most important tools for scientists studying the ancient world. Most carbon on Earth is carbon-12, made up of 6 protons and 6 neutrons. But when certain particles are bombarded with gamma radiation, carbon-14 is produced. These atoms have 2 extra neutrons. These are unstable atoms with a half-life of about 5,000 years. By measuring how much carbon-14 is in fossils, scientists can calculate the age. There's typically enough natural background radiation to make this possible. But in 2012, Japanese scientists found something strange. While analyzing ancient trees, they found a huge amount of carbon-14 that had been absorbed between 774 and 775. This would have been strange and mysterious enough if it was isolated to that region of the world. But scientists in Europe, America, and even New Zealand found the same thing. Between 774 and 775, there was 20 times the normal amount of carbon-14. Now the only question was why. As fascinating as this idea of ancient aliens would be, there are some natural explanations. But making all the pieces of the puzzle fit wasn't simple. One of the main problems was that the 2 events that could have explained this strange radiation would have been recorded elsewhere. A gamma ray burst from a supernova is one explanation, but it would have to be bigger than any other recorded burst, something that likely would have been noticed by ancient astronomers who would have interpreted it as a new star visible even in the day. It was still the European Dark Ages at the time, but scholars in China and the Middle East would have picked up on it too. The other explanation would have been a solar flare. Again, this would have been bigger than any ever recorded and would have caused spectacular aurora borealis events. Scientists in Antarctica found ice cores with isotopes that corresponded to this explanation, but it still leaves the question why no one recorded anything spectacular. Well, one person did. In the 774 Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a scholar noted that a red crucifix appeared in the sky after sunset. It was one small line between chronicles of battles and other important political events. In China, an extremely heavy thunderstorm was recorded in 775, which may have been connected. This could indicate people noticed this strange event occurring, but if so, only 2 cultures decided to write anything about it. Number 4. The Codex Gigas is one of the most mysterious books from the medieval era. Unlike things like the Voynich manuscript, we know what the book says, but it's the Codex Gigas' creation that is the mysterious event. The book is 92 centimeters long, 50 centimeters wide, and 22 centimeters thick. It's made up of 320 vellum sheets, making it one of the biggest medieval manuscripts as well. According to legend, it was written entirely in one night. The story goes that a monk named Herman the Recluse broke his vows. He was sentenced to be bricked up alive for his crimes, but the monk managed to convince them to give him a day in which to create a magnificent book that would make the monastery famous. He set about creating the Codex Gigas, which included both the Old and New Testaments, Jewish history books, medical books, and 2 books by Constantine the African. But at about midnight, he realized he wasn't going to be able to complete the book in one day. He prayed not to God, but to the devil, and the devil answered. The monk finished the Codex Gigas in one single night, complete with an enormous portrait of the devil himself. Of course, it's extremely unlikely the book was actually written in one night, but how it was created is still a mystery. Historians estimate that it would have taken between 20 and 30 years for a monk to create this incredible piece of work, which is sometimes called the Devil's Bible. As well as the text, there are illustrations including a diagram of God's heavenly city, and multiple stylized letters per page. This was definitely someone's life's work. But analysis of the script shows that it was written by a single person. The usual telltale signs of aging are also missing. There are also no signs of things even like mood change. It was as if the writer really had created it in a single night. Not much about the Codex's creation is actually known. The records end in the year 1229, indicating that the book was at least finished then, and the Codex's movements in the years since then have been recorded. But why the Codex was created, and why such a sacrilegious image of the devil was included in such a comprehensive and important religious text, remains a mystery. Number 3. The disappearance of Al-Hakim Bayamar Allah is one of the most unexplained and perplexing events in history. He earned the nickname the Mad Caliph for his harsh and volatile nature. Al-Hakim became ruler when he was just 11 years old in 996. He was in charge for about 25 years, and in that time, he left his mark. The Caliph's strange acts ranged from forcing shops to open at night, and banning certain foods and a traditional Egyptian dish, to banning women from going outside and taking the lives of every dog in Egypt because he was annoyed by their barking. As well as being particularly ruthless against women, he also persecuted Jews, Christians, and certain Muslims. He destroyed synagogues and churches and built over what was thought to be the traditional burial place of Jesus. But some sources say that he was widely liked by his subjects. He was a patron of the arts, built libraries, and public infrastructure. In times of famine, he gave out food and made sure that prices stayed reasonable. He was definitely a controversial character. One of the main subjects of his anger was his own sister. Some sources claim that Al-Hakim lusted after his sister and burned down a whole town when he thought that she was seeing someone in the town. When that rumor was proved to be false, he asked who ordered this. It wasn't long after this that Al-Hakim disappeared. It was February 13th, 1021. Throughout his reign, Al-Hakim enjoyed going for walks alone with no one other than his donkey, so it was nothing out of the ordinary when the Caliph decided to do just that one evening. This was the last time that anybody saw him. Someone as important as a Caliph going missing wasn't going to go unnoticed. There was a significant search effort, and Al-Hakim's donkey and some of his clothes were found. The state of the clothes indicated that he had been attacked, but nobody was ever found. There are plenty of theories about what happened in this unexplained event. Some Christians claim that the Caliph had seen visions of Jesus and had become a monk to repent. Another darker theory is that his sister ordered a hit. She did become the regent of the next Caliph, so it's easy to see where this theory came from. With no documents from the time giving any clues as to what happened, it's likely the unexplained event will remain just that. Number 2. The Lady Fatima and the Miracle of the Sun is one of the more famous miracles that is said to have happened. The miracle is said to have occurred in October of 1917, when tens of thousands of people supposedly saw something happen to the sun above a small village in Portugal. The sightings actually began in May. 3 peasant girls were returning from shepherding sheep when they were visited by the apparition of the Virgin Mary. Mary spoke to the eldest girl. She said she would reappear on the 13th of every month for the next 6 months. The girls told their parents and the others in their village. Like any sound-minded person would do, the villagers thought that the girls were either liars or had overactive imaginations. But when the 13th of June came, a handful of people gathered at the spot where the Virgin Mary was supposed to appear. Unfortunately, the apparition once again only happened to the eldest girl, Lucia. The next month, Lucia asked for a miracle to prove that she was really appearing. According to Lucia, Mary responded, saying, quote, "In October, I will tell you who I am and what I want, and I will perform a miracle for all to see and believe." October 13th was a particularly wet and miserable day. It was raining when about 70,000 people went with Lucia to the spot where Mary was supposed to appear. Again, Mary only appeared to Lucia. Lucia claimed the apparition said, quote, "Do not offend the Lord our God anymore, because he is already so much offended." Then Lucia cried to look at the sun. What happened after that changes from telling to telling. Most sources say the clouds separated and the rain suddenly stopped. The sun appeared, but it was a dull silver in color and didn't hurt to look at. Some people even saw the light change colors, while others reported the sun moving and even coming closer to the earth. The sightings came not just from people who had gathered at the site, but also people in nearby houses and a school. To believers, this eliminates any possibility that this was a mass hallucination. People who weren't expecting anything to happen still saw something. Obviously, the sun didn't come closer to the earth or move in the sky. The phenomenon wasn't reported anywhere else in the world, and it would have been the same for everyone who gathered. Some have suggested it was a trick of the eye, as looking at the sky near the sun can sometimes make it appear as if the sun is moving. The most likely explanation for this unexplained event was mass hysteria or mass suggestion, but that doesn't necessarily explain the experiences of those who weren't expecting to see anything. Number 1. The year 1815 was known as the year without a summer, due to a colossal volcanic eruption. But a different mysterious eruption 8 years earlier that should have acted as its precursor remains unexplained. In the 1990s, examinations of ice cores in Greenland showed high concentrations of sulfuric acid, which could be dated to around 1808. There were other cases of high concentrations of this chemical, which would all be linked to a significant volcanic eruption. It was only this 1808 concentration that remained a mystery. Evidence from tree rings indicated a colder than usual summer, which again lined up with what happens after a major volcanic eruption. The eruption would have been 10 times the power of the eruption of Mount St. Helens. This wasn't something that could be easily missed. The only problem was scientists and historians couldn't find any first-hand accounts of such an eruption. Historians searched texts from Latin America and finally found 2 accounts that may have lined up with the mysterious eruption. The first was from a respected Colombian scientist. In December of 1808, he described the sun changing to a silver color, and many people mistaking it for the moon. He also reported extremely cold weather and frost covering Colombia. The second report came from a physician in Peru who described sunset afterglows, which are typical of a volcanic eruption. As these sightings were made on both sides of the equator, it was believed that the volcano must have been somewhere in the tropics, but the question remains where. Even eruptions like Tambora, one of the most violent eruptions known to man, is recorded. Volcanic eruptions that wipe out entire cities, as what happened in Pompeii, are recorded by nearby cities and civilizations. No matter how devastating an eruption would be to those living directly beneath the volcano, an eruption that ejected debris into the stratosphere would have been seen directly by people living nearby. Today, scientists are still trying to solve where this mysterious eruption occurred, and whether it might once again pose a threat in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.